So I do have a longer video going out today with Yusuke, and it's a little more formal, but I did want to do a little bit of an impromptu rant because there's been a little bit of controversy, especially recently, about Breath of the Wild and where it falls in the timeline. And don't get me wrong, I love the timeline. I am a nerd about the timeline. I spent hours just thinking about where Breath of the Wild would be in the timeline. That being said, I think that there is a reason why it doesn't seem to fit in any timeline. I think it's intentional. In my opinion, I don't think it matters where it exists in the timeline. And I'm not like, oh hey, it doesn't exist where it exists in the timeline. Why are you so stupid, nerd? It's just not like that, because I really do like the timeline. But for me, I think Nintendo really emphasize the fact that this is the Legend of Zelda. And if you look at legends throughout the eras, if you look at mythology, that kind of thing, they're not concrete about what happened and what didn't happen. So if you look at Roman versus Greek culture, you have Aphrodite versus Venus, you have Diana versus Artemis, you have all of these different gods and goddesses, and they're the same, but they're not the same, but they're basically the same, but they're not the same. And I think it's kind of like that. Or if you look at the Arthurian legends, for me, there's no canonical version of the Arthurian legends because the first one came out 800 BCE and it's basically about a warlord and had nothing that we know nowadays as the King Arthur tale. It wasn't until really getting into the 1200s, the 1300s, 1400s that they started emphasizing chivalry and knights doing the right thing, because at that time, especially during the Crusades, the knights were going around pillaging and raping people, and they're like, that's bad, don't do that. So they tried to make an example of the knights. Then you get into the 1800s, the Victorian era, the more romantic era. You have an era of people who, they had a lot of affairs. I'm not going to get into it. But the idea was, what people wanted to read about was Guinevere and Lancelot and their whole forbidden love. And then you get into the era around World War II. There's a lot of patriotism infiltrated back into the tale about, especially with Merlin and that sort of thing. You get into the 80s, you get into the Myths of Babylon, you get into the old religion versus the new religion, that sort of thing. And each tale borrows from each other. Each tale includes the same details. Most of the tales, especially after the 1200s, 1300s, they always have Excalibur, that sort of thing. But the idea is that there's not a canonical version. And the reason for that is because it adapts, the tale adapts for what you need in that time. So I think that Breath of the Wild is so far into the future that it doesn't actually matter where it's placed because it's impossible to tell that at this time. So it's kind of like they converged, took all of these things from these different timelines and put them together. So that's why you have references to Wind Waker, you have references to Twilight Princess, you have references to Downfall Timeline, that sort of thing. And they're all there. They're all in names in places. There's the Zora, there's the Koroks, but there's also the Rito. So it doesn't make sense why these things would exist. Like, yes, you could argue that they went through a different line of evolution, and you wouldn't be wrong, and I wouldn't be right, and I wouldn't be wrong, and you wouldn't be right. We don't know. We don't have enough information to tell that. We can guess, but at the same time, we don't. So it's of my opinion that it literally does not matter because it intentionally doesn't matter in this game. It's supposed to be basically just all these different tales, and because it's so far in the future, they don't know what's true and what's not. It's almost as if these are their mythologies. When we play the other games, it's like if we were reading Edith Hamilton's book, or if we were looking at our old textbooks, or looking at our own kind of background. That's how I view it. You can disagree with me if you want. And if you have anything to add to that, you can add in the comments. Later today, my Yusuke video for Persona 5 will be out. So if you are not a Zelda fan and you hated this video, that's okay. You can ignore it. But if you liked it, like it. And if you want to subscribe, also subscribe. And if you want to look at my other videos, you can look at my other videos. So yeah, thanks.